Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's daily dose of scripture is going to be on Romans chapter 9 verse 20. In that account Paul said, "Nay, but, O man, who art thou that repliest against God? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, Why hast thou made me thus?" What I want to particularly focus on is the idea of judging God. But some people like to do this. For example, they'll say, and for Samuel chapter 15, verses 1 to 3, God commanded that, the Amalekites all be killed, so God committed genocide. That's an example. And there are so many other passages where God commanded that a lot of people be wiped out. In fact, in the book of Joshua, God commanded that this be done several times to populations that God didn't want to be there anymore. So people think that God is unfair or wicked for doing this because they don't see God as having the right to do that. But God does, because, see, the way God described it, the relationship between us and him is like the relationship a sculptor has with a potter. Does a pot, let me just show you where that is. For example, there's the Romans chapter 9 verse 21, Paul mentioned this, that does not the potter have power over to the clay to make one unto honor and another unto dishonor. And there's also, God told Jeremiah to go to a potter's house, and when Jeremiah went there, God showed him, look at what this potter is doing. That is how I've made man. In fact, as I even said, we are the clay, you are our potter. We are the works of your hands. Read Isaiah chapter 64, verse 8. So the point is, that is who we are to God. So he has the right, just as he can make us, he can also break us down or destroy us. Look, we build buildings all the time. Do we not have a right to break the buildings down? Of course, because we made them. The only reason why it's a bit more complicated for us to understand this particular issue is because we are the ones being destroyed or broken down. So there's that bias that we have towards our own existence, which to an extent God understands. We should like life and so on, but not to the extent that we begin to judge him. That is to say, when he wants to do something, then we think he's wrong. God cannot be wrong because he made everything. He has a right to destroy everything because all belongs to him, including the atheists that don't believe he exists. They are also made by him equally, even if they don't know him, even if they're fools to think he doesn't exist. So we have to understand God has every right to destroy us, just as we humans have a right to destroy what we built with our own hands. Nobody is going, if for example, Canada says, I want to break down the CN Tower because we want to build something else, does somebody have a right to say you're not allowed to do that? No, because we built it. We have the power to pull it down, the Burj Khalifa. If the UAE says we want to pull down the Burj Khalifa, provided that it's the government that built it that's saying they want to pull it down, they have every right to do that because they built it. Similarly, God made us. So if he says, this particular population, I don't want them to live anymore, he has every right to do that. And we have to live with that. Yes, if you are that population, it may sound unfair because it's happening to you, but you have to see things from God's perspective, not from our own perspective. From God's perspective, which is the important perspective, he made us, and so he can decide, I want this population to be special. Read Exodus chapter 19, verses 4 to 6. God has a right to make one population special and declare another population evil. He has every right to do that. So anytime we feel like judging God or saying God is wrong or God is unfair or stuff like that, there is no biblical basis for that argument. There might be a scientific basis for it, but there's no biblical basis for that argument. God has a right to do whatever he wants, and we only have the right to agree with him. That is the right God has given us. He's given us the right of free will to agree with him or disagree if we want. But it doesn't change the fact that God does whatever he wants. Okay? So that was the point I wanted to make. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to the channel for future videos. I'll see you in the next one.